Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome once again to Career Expert Roundtable. I am Bill, the company's expert, and with me, as always, is Abby from the YouTube channel Life Work Balance. And we are here to answer your questions, anything to do with job search, careers, hiring, resumes, job interviews, the job market, all that kind of stuff. It's all good. We're here to be able to try and help you guys out if people have any questions or discussions around that stuff. So if you are watching this on my channel or on Abby's channel or anywhere else, you should see some type of chat box in the vicinity of the video feed. Get into the chat and let us know what your questions are, and we will answer them. How you doing today, Abby?
Yes, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Bill. And just to piggyback off of what you were saying, if you have any questions about your job search, your career, whatever it is, ranging from applying to jobs to interviewing, all the way to even some more like way to behave in the professional environment, please feel free to put those types of questions in the chat. A couple of streams ago, Bill and I talked about how to have conversations with your manager for performance reviews and coaching sessions and things like that. So the gamut we can discuss. So put your questions and thoughts in the chat. And I see Rourke has already said hello. Hi, Rourke. Good to see you here in our stream. Bill, you and I had talked about initially kind of discussing like the state of the employment market right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something a lot of people are wondering about. Yeah. Well, we were just like 2 minutes before we went live, we were talking about the job market and some of the latest employment figures that were released, primarily in the United States. There were some original numbers that were released, and then they were restated, and then there were some political kerfuffles there, and then you ended up not hearing about it. Yeah. But what I've been hearing about is that it does not look all rosy and peaches and cream right now, especially in the IT industry. There's some layoffs and things that are happening there. This is the thing. So different industries, they kind of like have a boom bust cycle. Some are cyclical, some they're not cyclical, but they rise and fall and all this kind of stuff. And recession is where they all sort of go down at once, right? All together. Yeah. I don't think that's really happening right now, but we do see several industries that are taking a hit, and therefore they are not hiring that much people right now. So that's kind of the consensus.
And so that doesn't mean that there aren't any new jobs. It just means that there's fewer new jobs available for people to apply to.
Absolutely.
Which makes it difficult. But yeah, according to the news sources, the unemployment rate is at a 4-year high. It's like the highest it's been in the last 4 years, which isn't good. And I've noticed when I'm working with my clients that they are experiencing months of searching for jobs, which should be expected when you go into the job search process, but isn't necessarily ideal. So people are, looking for employment for 2 to 3 months before they start working with me. And then it could even be longer after we work together that they actually find something that's a really good fit for them. So it's a numbers and time game.
Absolutely. Rourke here says, yes, I was in IT, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get another role in IT. I've been applying to accounting and to HR, accounts payable, accounts receivable roles. Mm-hmm. The good thing is to be versatile, and a lot of jobs out there. I mean, there's a lot of, I know Abby talks about it quite a lot, the transportable skills, right? Which are very real. So that's the thing. Personally, for what it's worth, I believe that IT is going to come back. It always does. It's just that it comes in waves, right? And the big disruptive factor, of course, right now is AI. Things are changing, but they're going to come back, and they're going to come back in a big way. That's my prediction. And I would say that's going to start in about 12 months if I had to put money on it. Yeah. But that's just me. So best of luck to Rourke.
Well, and I think that when people are, it's really easy to blame other things when it comes to our job search. And while there are a lot of external factors that we cannot control when it comes to our job search, there are things that we can control. So for example, AI. That's a great, topic that has been top of mind for most people. AI, while it can be completely removing some jobs, it's not going to remove all jobs. And so what we can do proactively as job seekers is we can get some training on AI. We can, make sure we stay up to date on all of the changes that are occurring in that, field and the emerging technology and things like that. What we don't want to do is say, well, AI is going to take my job and then just leave it there. If I think AI is going to take my job, what can I do to be better than AI? How can I utilize AI to be even better at my job that it, outperforms what AI could do because a human is involved? So we have to think of it that way. Even though there are things that we cannot control, AI coming into the market, what can I control about AI coming into the market? I can learn more about it. I can increase my skills. I can become more marketable. And I ideally am so valuable to my organization because I have this additional insight and knowledge about AI that they can't let me go.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, if you look at every other wave of innovation, I mean, name how far you want to go back. You want to go back 20 years, you want to go back 50 years, 100 years. It follows the same pattern. And that is that, when these things come in, everybody thinks in terms of like, okay, in the world of today, if we remove all the stuff that this thing replaces, and then we look at that, you know, it and then you get a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about how it looks like a dystopia. And the part that everybody always miss, because it's very hard to visualize this, is all the enabling things, that all the new stuff that will come in, because you have a new tool, right? You have a new tool. That tool enables you to do all kinds of new and exciting things that you weren't able to do before, right? But we
Well, you
can't
were able to do it,
visualize.
but it was like it took me 2 days to do it rather than 2 minutes
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, like think of like when the internet came in. I mean, I remember that. First it was computers, like, just on a desk, like not connected to anything. Then
Yeah.
it was the internet. And when the internet came in, everybody preached doom and gloom even more. This will be the end of everything. It'll replace everybody's job and it will leave us with nothing. Now, of course, we know what happened, right? It does replace a lot of things that, went by the wayside, but it enables so much more, including like the medium over which we're talking right now. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so I mean, the thing is, what you can't see when you envision what this new AI world is going to look like is you can envision what everybody is going to be able to do just with these new tools, right? Because we don't really know what that looks like.
Well, and even today, how people are using AI, nobody knew that it would look like this even 2 years ago when AI started to emerge, or 3 years ago when it started to kind of become popular. Like, it's going to evolve at an exponential rate that no one can predict.
Yeah.
And so, we can't have doom and gloom mentality about it. And we can't blame our slow job search on things like that.
And right now, I mean, I talk about entrepreneurship and stuff. So one of the interesting things is that, okay, you've got this new tool that's arrived, and a lot of the bigger businesses and things, I mean, for all their purported embrace of these new tools, they're really always very conservative. They really don't want to change in a meaningful way. And so it always creates an opportunity for, individuals and people that would start up small businesses and things around this stuff.
Yes.
They're open to using these new tools, whereas a lot of businesses and things aren't. So there's a real opportunity to run rings around them and make a lot of money. So I mean, that's something that not many people are talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, let's get back to so we heard from Rourke there. Now Rourke says here, I think this is the next one.
Yep.
I do have a question about in-office visits. My wife's work was looking for several roles that I applied for and would like to stop by the office, but my wife says the CFO might blacklist me since she hates cold calls. How best to address that hurdle? That's an interesting one.
I just talked to someone this morning
Mhm.
about networking, and there's this mindset. I have the mindset as well. So it's something that I have to constantly work to just tell myself that it's not going to be that bad. The chances of you getting blacklisted from showing up to chat with someone is slim.
Yeah,
If they blacklist you,
they
do
got
you want
problems.
to work there?
Yeah. Like,
So,
who are you to
yeah,
dare
how dare
to
you?
talk to me?
Yeah, no. So
The
that
question is, who
that
do you
type
have to be to talk to that person, right? Yeah.
that type of response is a major red flag if the CFO were to blacklist you. Now, a lot of this comes from this mindset of like, well, I don't want to bother this person. I don't want to take up their time. I don't want to, like we make up a lot of excuses as to why we shouldn't go through that type of exercise of just like showing up to the office. Now, there might be some barriers in place. Like, for example, the person that I talked to this morning, we were talking about going through this networking, exercise, thinking of who they know and could they just show up to this office that's close to their home where they want to work and like just try to talk to someone. There might be security measures in place where they have like a front desk where you have to badge in to get through and you can't like just go talk to someone. In that case, try to get the CFO's email address if that's the person you want to talk to. Send them an email, offer to buy them coffee. Maybe you can meet close by. Maybe you could bring them a coffee. Maybe it's just a Zoom call. The worst that can happen is this person says no. And I guess maybe in in your wife's perspective, the CFO blacklists you. But in that case, it's probably better that they blacklist you because you probably don't want to work with them anyway if that's going to be their response to you trying to build your network. So I think the thought for me is, what's the worst that can happen? If you show up in person and you come bringing your resume or you want to talk about a specific role that you were interested in, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge topic, and there's a lot of different things you could talk about here. I mean, um, like the thing is, I personally, the stuff I've done with this kind of thing, it's been based on an attitude that, like, look, if someone is open to talking to me, I will talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are not receptive, like if they're coming into this saying, maybe they're like me, they're like a big introvert, and they just don't want to talk to people that they don't know as a matter of principle. Oh, there's someone here. Do I know them? Oh, I don't know them. Okay, I don't want to talk to them. Oh, they're being very insistent. They're really trying to get at me. They're like, now they're emailing, now they're calling me, now they're, it's like, no, you know what I mean? Like I'm just not open. That's not something that I normally do. Uh, people just kind of drop by and want to talk to me. It's like, no, I got work to do. And, so the thing is, in that case, what I would recommend for reaching that type of person, like in Rourke's case, if, you're specifically targeting this one person, you want to talk to them, even though it might appear that they're a little bit antisocial. They're kind of like putting up some barriers there. What I would say is that, something pretty innocuous that you can do and very reasonable and very professional is to send them a message either through email or DM or whatever, and just say, listen, I'm here. I'm great at this. I offer this. If ever you're looking for that, let me know. So that, if they happen to be on the lookout or just on the DL for someone that can do that, we have a vacancy here, we might want to fill it, and then you show up and you express yourself very professionally, and it's a very low pressure kind of thing, which they would probably appreciate, especially if they're acting the way the CFO is acting. You know what I mean? That's probably the best you can do, in my opinion, for this type of person. The way networking works and these outreach things is it's like sending out job applications. Like you don't just apply to one or two jobs. You apply to hundreds of jobs. Like that's kind of the name of the game. So this type of networking works exactly the same way. You're going to not focus on pinning your hopes on one person. It's just an approach. You do this to hundreds of people. And the idea is that out there right now, there's somebody in a position that's higher than you that has the ability to hire. And they are looking for someone that, has some of the skills that you have, in which case they might say, hey, let's talk or, something. It would be advantageous for them to pursue you rather than post a job and go through all the headache of doing that kind of thing. So.
Yep. And Rourke, if you scroll down to the bottom of our chat list, Bill, you'll see that
Yep.
one of Rourke's last comments says, I'm not worried about bothering them, but I have to pre-think and practice how I'm going to respond to conversation stoppers that might come up. I was hoping you could help with ideas of what to say so I can practice my responses. And in that case, the conversation stoppers might be someone saying like, nope, this person isn't available. And that's when you kind of go with what Bill's technique is, was like, well, if something ever comes up and you're looking for this type of person, here I am, here's what I do, here's the value that I could bring, would love to hear from you, and you kind of like are forced to leave it in their court, and they may not ever get back to you. That doesn't mean you can't follow up with them. Like, hey, I noticed this role was posted. I'd be happy to chat with you about, my expertise in this area and how I might be a good fit for this role. I applied, but wanted to talk to someone directly. You can just kind of leave it out there. The worst that can happen is they don't respond.
Yeah, it's like there's a very specific type of personality, someone who usually works in outside sales, that they have the personality, they have the savvy to be able to work on people, and they'll be persistent, and they'll follow up with the person that really doesn't want to talk to them, but they will gradually try and turn that around. And I'm not saying they're always successful, but first of all, they have the personality where they don't mind doing this. They might even enjoy that kind of interaction with people. Most people, in my experience, don't, to varying degrees.
Yeah.
But these people do. Now, if you're that type of person, then you could maybe go beyond what Abby and I are kind of saying. But I think for most people, it's like, look, if you happen to be looking for this, then and you think it's a good idea to talk to someone that might have it, then let's talk. Let's do this. But I'm not going to try and persuade you if you're actively kind of hostile to me, or you are putting up a lot of barriers for this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a lot more productive things you could be doing. You know what I mean? Instead of doing this. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the way I approach these things. Now, each to their own. There's different strokes for different folks, but that's kind of, in my experience, like a type of networking that almost anybody can do. Saying, listen, if you're looking for this thing,
Mm-hmm.
I have it. Maybe we should, investigate further. And I think that's something that most people can do. And it feels right because you're not really pestering people. You're not really being forceful or doing any kind of hard sell.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say.
When I saw, it was like on some social media thing where it was like, here's a tip on how to get people to want to help you. And it's using a phrase called, or that's along the lines of like, if there's any chance you could do X, Y, and Z, or, it's like along those lines, like, I'm just going to throw this out there. And if there's any chance you might have the time to sit down and talk to me, that like phrase can psychologically cause the other person to be like, there is a chance, let me help you. It feels a little bit more positive to them. And I think there's like asking people for advice is always something that they're willing to give. Here Bill and I are live streaming, happy to give our advice. And so people feel much more open to give advice to others. So when you kind of start off by asking like, hey, do you have any advice for someone who's looking to break into this field or who wants to work for your organization? Those are great conversation starters if you're not even really sure where to start with a conversation with them.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, we kind of were dealing with Rourke here, but I'd like to go back to where we left off. I
Peace of
think
mind.
this is the next one. So I've noticed that there are more medical billing and collection jobs lately. Yeah, that's, I guess, in the States and in Canada where I am. Yeah.
Yep. Well, and the employment gains and losses, at least according to Reuters, in August, the private education and health services was the biggest industry that had growth. They had almost 50,000 jobs added to the market, at least in the US. So those things aren't going away. Health and insurance and medical billing and collection, like people want their money. So those types of areas are not going to go away anytime soon.
Okay, here's, I think, the next one. G says, many in my field are figuring out how to use AI as a tool. Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be extended to pretty much every field coming
And
up.
if it can help us be more effective at doing our jobs versus completely eliminate our jobs, learn how to use it.
Oh, absolutely. I'd recommend everyone embrace this stuff. It's like when computers came. It's like when the internet came. It's like when the internet 2.0 came. It's like, just the more savvy you are about these tools and what's going on, the better it's going to be in your professional life and your personal life, not just how these things go. So Rourke again says, are companies making rules about what information employees can enter into an AI chatbot? Yep, they are. I'm not
Yeah.
down with the details. Do you know anything about that, Abby?
Yeah, well, in fact, some of the organizations I've worked with directly have policies specifically on what AI can and cannot be used for. So, for example, I work with government organizations, and they do not want, sensitive information being entered into the AI platforms. That's I make sure that I use it when I'm working with clients. I intentionally leave out identifying information and like names, emails, phone numbers, LinkedIn URLs. If I'm working with a client, I want to make sure that I'm protecting them as best as I can. Same thing with businesses. They want to make sure that there's no sensitive information, business, secrets being put into these platforms because I've seen some reports that you can subpoena information that has been entered into AI generated things that can be used against you in court. There are lots of impacts of using AI, and so you definitely want to make sure that if you're an organization that you have policies and procedures in place for how your employees can and cannot use technology like this.
Yeah. Here's another one. Whoa, I just got a personalized email from the in-house recruiter at one of the companies I have applied to on Thursday last week. Well,
Ooh,
that's good. That's
yeah,
how
that's
many
a quick
days?
response.
Less than a week. Yeah.
Less than a week. Yeah. I mean, really, it's like Thursday to Friday is one business day, Friday to Monday is 2 business days. That's a pretty quick response, which hopefully means that they are indicating that they're interested in talking to you.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about this before. I do public opinion polls on my YouTube channel, and I know from those polls consistently that people out there, you guys, a lot of you guys, you really want some kind of response either way
Yep.
when you send out an application. So you want to get something back,
I know I
either,
do. Yeah.
yeah. And it's kind of surprising for me because I think that if that's your policy, you're going to be getting a lot of rejections, first of all, and that those kind of sting. Um, on the other hand, I think my theory is that this kind of thinking that apparently everyone does, it makes you look back a lot as opposed to look forward. Instead of looking forward to, what new opportunities can I put myself forth today, instead now we're thinking about like, okay, I applied to these things last week and these things the week before that. How are we doing? Have I gotten responses? And it seems like there's two disadvantages. Number one, when you think about that stuff, it's first of all not productive
Mhm.
because you're not increasing the likelihood of you're going to get hired. And secondly, it's not. I imagine it's not great for your mental health. You're dwelling on like, I'm not hearing anything. I'm not hearing anything. Why am I not hearing anything? You know, and I don't imagine that makes anyone feel very good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and while I would prefer to get more responses than, just crickets chirping, it also is the reality of applying to jobs. You're not going to get a bunch of quick responses or responses at all. So while we can all acknowledge that having some communication would be nice so that we can know, do I, keep pursuing this or do I need to move on? Looking forward is going to be better for us from a mental health perspective, like you were mentioning, Bill, as well as just from a productivity perspective. If I'm like continuously looking back and dwelling on not getting responses, not hearing, then I can easily spiral into this place of like, well, what did they not like about me? What am I not doing well enough? That like negative self-talk, which can really bring us down and reduce our productivity when it comes to our ability to apply to jobs. So while we all admit that we want to hear more often than not what the status is on our application, it will be better for you from a productivity and probably a mental health perspective to just apply and then file it away and say, if I don't hear back from them, I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm going to just keep applying. That doesn't mean that you apply to everything you can. You just blast out a bajillion applications, but it does mean that you're not going to be dwelling in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back 2 years ago when I was like looking for jobs and stuff, and it's like, it's not a good feeling like reading those rejection letters. I mean, they used to either write them in this like legalese that makes it's so impersonal, or if it's not in legalese, it's usually very blunt. I guess the priority is they don't want people to misunderstand that this is it, like it's the end of the line for you pursuing this role or something with us. And they don't want that to be misconstrued in any way. So they make it very blunt, and it's just, and it really kind of stings. I mean, at the point of risk of being obnoxious, it's like saying, this is your rejection letter. It's like, see, you didn't get it. You didn't get it. Like this
You're
kind of
the
thing.
worst.
Yeah. And it's like, it would, I mean, how do people feel getting that? It kind of tears you down. It's bad enough being rejected for a lot of stuff, but then you get like constantly reminded in a very blunt, like obvious in your face kind of way, you know, the other, like, and what I remember, I don't know if people still do this. I think they do, but like just the choice of wording, the choice of wording is very
Mm-hmm.
poorly done. It's like saying, you didn't measure up, or your skills were insufficient for what, our standard is, or stuff like this, which is completely inaccurate.
Well, and a better qualified candidate, which is what
Yeah.
usually is that like phrasing that they use, is like, well, I applied to this because I'm qualified.
Yeah.
So
You
why
say
am I
you're
not
looking for
qualified?
this. Yeah. You say you're looking for this. I have that. And then you tell me you're not qualified. It's like, what? And the reality, first of all, just so everybody knows, and Abby, you can give me your version of this too. It's like, the way I understand it is that when you apply for something and they say no, all that means is that you just don't happen to be the thing that they were envisioning, when they are looking for someone, right? Now, that is not the same thing as not measuring up, right?
Right.
They could be looking for someone to exploit, someone that's easily led. They're going to be exploited. They're going to be treated very poorly, and they don't want anyone that's going to complain or push back against that. So maybe for that reason, you weren't selected. You know what I mean? It has nothing to do with how qualified you are or how valuable you might be. And also, it is a perception of that based on very incomplete information, like especially when they haven't even met you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that's what's going on. So when someone then, has done this and they say, well, based on this very superficial view of what you've sent us, it's not really what we're looking for, so we're going to reject you. And then they tell you, almost borderline insulting things about yourself. You don't measure up. You don't have the standards that we, need. And, this kind of, I mean, getting that multiple times a day for weeks and weeks and weeks, that's not a good feeling,
No. And we as humans we remember and we focus on the negative. So we're going to be, if we get more negative rejections, then that's going to bring us down a lot faster. So I think the statistic based on the research is it's 5-1. For every one negative thing that happens to us, we need 5 equally or more positive things to happen to us to counteract the impact of that negative thing. So if I'm getting 5 rejections and I've got that 5-1 thing, I need 25 non-rejections to counteract those 5 rejections. So it just is, we don't want to.
So to get back to where you were before, what you're saying is that you need one chocolate cake, one, compliment from your boss, one passionate kiss from a member of the opposite sex, keep like all to get back to when you felt normal before this rejection. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I can believe it.
Yep.
So yeah, but people apparently want to receive that notification one way or another. Mm-hmm. What happened? I mean, I just want to say, like, I know this is probably easier said than done, but I think that more people should perhaps adopt the attitude that once you've applied for something and you've done everything that they've asked to put yourself forward for an opportunity, I would put it out of your mind if they, or at least attempt to do so. If they call you back and they want to interact with you some more, great. You'll give them whatever they need. But until that happens, you can just assume that it's not really happening right now. You know what I mean? And then you focus on moving forward. And if they're not calling you back for that thing, then I'm going to apply for something today that they will call me back for. And, and just proceed like that. Because so you're always thinking about future stuff, which is hopeful, which is very positive.
Yeah. I would say kind of along those same lines, and you don't want to never look backwards. So you want to have an idea of what the like dream companies are that you want to work for, the ones that you're going to put in a little extra effort, and maybe the specific roles that you feel like you are the best fit for. If I'm applying to, let's just say, 100 jobs in the course of my job search, I'm not going to be able to follow up on all 100 of those jobs in a really
Yeah.
effective, meaningful way. But if I know that of the 100, I have 10 that I think are the best fit for me, that I, love the organization and the actual work that I'm doing is going to be a perfect fit for my skills, then putting in some of that extra effort to check in and follow up, that's worth it. So looking backwards at all of those 100 jobs that I've applied to, probably not the best use of my time and energy. Looking back on the top 10 of those 100 jobs, that's probably a better way to spend my time.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, I think we did this one. No, there's Kathy here.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy says, I've been working as a flight attendant for 25 years. Well, that's good. That's like this kind of, like that. You can't see my arms, but that's kind of, anyway.
There's another comment below, like a couple below that says, I've been in college while working and now hold a master's degree in educational counseling.
Okay, there we go. So there's the continuation of it.
Yep.
Right on. Well, that's good.
Didn't see any other comments from her. But
well, you're not alone in the sense that you have one career and you do it, you take it quite far, and then you get some training and then go in another direction. I mean, that leads to some of the most interesting people I know.
yes.
People that have kind of got, and not only the fact that you did one career and then you did another one, but you got a kind of an interesting or a strange combination of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really gives people the edge. I like working with people like that.
I do too. And I think even, let's just make some assumptions here. In educational counseling, you could go to a lot of places with that. You could work with adults, you could work with, children or students in a variety of ages and stages. And so your experience as a flight attendant probably gives you a really unique background that a lot of other people who might be applying to jobs in that educational counseling sphere don't have. So you can probably work with a wide range of people, whether it's personalities, conflict styles, problem solving, communication, all of those really important core skills for your degree and the field that you would go into with that, based off of the previous industry that you were in.
Yeah, what's interesting is that you can either combine those backgrounds directly and say, like, okay, flight attendant, educational counseling. Okay, how can you combine them directly? Maybe you're doing training on safety for flight attendants or something like that, or helping flight attendants cope with the experience of dealing with rowdy passengers or emergency situations. And, so you can combine them directly, but then you could break it down into its constituent skills and say, like, okay, flight attendant, what do you need to be a flight attendant? Well, you've got to be able to keep a cool head in stressful situations. You got to be able to handle people. You have to be able to take charge of a situation. There's like a bunch of people, things like this. So you combine those constituent skills with educational counseling. Maybe in education, you got a lot of, dare I say it, very timid people that, are a far cry from people that, can keep a level head in an emergency situation. So maybe gives you a unique insight to be able to go and educate those people or do therapy with them or, whatever. So that's a great thing about having, a lot of things in your background. You can like combine them in new and exciting ways that really give you an edge,
Absolutely.
So way to go, Kathy. Scaramouche. That reminds me of the Queen song, right? Anyway, I recently applied for an internal role. I was shortlisted for the role and did the interview. The next week, a colleague who came back from leave was allowed to apply for the job, but applications had closed. Okay.
And then the next comment from them. Yep.
I'm annoyed by the company not following protocol and reopening up closed applications. Okay.
Yeah. That's from an HR perspective, as someone who has been in HR, if you miss the application period, you miss the application period. So it does feel a little fishy, especially if you feel like you haven't heard back and maybe they were like waiting for this person. But just because you're on leave doesn't mean that you can't log into the system and apply to a job either. And if they were waiting for this person, then why didn't they wait for this person to come back from leave? Anyway, there's a lot of questions that I've got going on, and I would feel annoyed as well. if I were in that situation.
One thing you can try there, I mean, it's worth a shot, is this is a perfect reason to reach out to either the recruiter or the hiring manager
Mhm.
if you have their contact information and ask them and say, like, listen, I was on leave. It seems that I missed that window to apply, but I feel I'm really qualified for this and I really want it. Would I still be able to apply? Does it make sense for me to send you an application or anything like that? And
Mhm.
just see what they say. They might say, yeah, go for it, and the fact that you had a personal interaction with them, that might just get them to look at your application, especially, and it could go somewhere. So, there's no harm in trying.
Yeah, well, and I think like in this case where, you applied during the application period and you interviewed, it was closed and then they like reopened it for this other person to apply. Um, that doesn't mean that you didn't get the job unless you've heard back and you didn't get the job. But, you don't want to make them feel defensive about these actions. You don't necessarily want to call this out, but I think you're also well within your rights to, contact the hiring manager, the interview panel that you may have interviewed with, the recruiter who might be responsible for the posting, and just check in to see how things are going. If there's anything additional that they want you to provide or that you could provide to help them make their decision, things like that. But bringing up the fact that they reopened it for this other person after it was already closed is not going to be in your best interest.
Yeah, yeah, it's a sensitive thing, and the reality is that these people can basically do what they want. I mean,
Yeah.
outside of breaking the law, I mean, they can do what they want. So, that's on them. Um, did we do this one? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Rourke says, I do not mind the uncomfortableness of a cold call, but I'm not super quick witted, and that hurts me in sales situations, even when I'm selling myself.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't recommend cold calls to anybody. As I was kind of talking about earlier, if you have a certain personality type you don't mind, you know, great, all the more power to you. You could like do this and kick ass. But for most people, if you're not really comfortable doing that, you don't, in my opinion, you don't have to. There's a lot of other things you can do that
Yeah.
are more effective. You know what I mean?
Yep. I agree. And then I think Rourke's next comment is maybe about the personalized email from the recruiter that he just received. So they want to
Is
schedule
that
a phone
this one
call.
here?
I think so.
Okay.
We want to schedule a phone call to discuss the role and what my desired career path is. Uh, I'm almost worried about responding to the email too quickly. And do I say I'm available anytime to call? Good questions. I don't think responding too quickly is a problem here. I mean, they responded to you pretty quickly. And the chances of them emailing you and a couple of other people is probably high. So the sooner you can respond back and get on their calendar first, the better. And I would say, I'm you can say like I'm flexible. I can, make my schedule work with yours. What times work for you? Is there a specific day or time that works best? Be a little bit more specific if you can when it comes to your availability. But even saying like if you want to chat today, I'm available from this time to this time. Otherwise, let me know what day and time works best for you, and I can fit that in my schedule.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything technically wrong with saying anytime, but it would be better if you say like I'm flexible, like Abby says, but mornings are better, or something like that. I think something general like that
Yeah.
is perfectly fine to say, for
Yep.
people. You don't want to be too restrictive because then that makes it harder for them to get back to you, right?
Yep.
Um, NC Worker says, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, NC Worker. Thank you for being here. Uh, Valentina says, I'm struggling with my resume. If you should apply for hundreds of jobs instead of focusing on a few, my CV should be vague to fit more jobs. No, that's not really the approach I would recommend. But
No.
Abby, I think, is the big expert here on resume customization.
Yeah. And so when it comes to hundreds of job applications, that's not in a short period of time. You probably want to work if you are actively applying to jobs, probably 3 to 5 quality applications a day. And when I'm talking to job seekers, many times they're unemployed. So their like full-time job is job searching. And so it's reasonable to say, find 3 to 5 jobs that are a really great fit for you and then apply to those and spend your day working on tailoring those resumes, those cover letters, putting together, more quality application packages. Now, over time, if you're job searching for 2 to 3 months, that will add up to 100 plus applications. Hopefully, you don't have to apply to hundreds of jobs. Hopefully, you get a quicker response than that. But with the way things are going lately with the job market, chances are you're going to be submitting more applications than usual. Now, when it comes to tailoring your resume, you don't need to spend hours tailoring your individual documents for each individual application. You'll probably find that you'll have a themed resume. For example, I have a resume that's like training and development focused. And I also have a resume that's more HR and recruiting focused. And so I have those two tailored versions that I then can easily tweak with a couple of keyword changes, maybe some bullet point swap in and swap out, maybe some more quantifiable metrics that I want to include for one job versus another. But it's all based off of the job posting. And so you can streamline this process by copying and pasting your resume and the job posting into a generative AI platform. And it can give you some ideas on how to tailor your document in a more effective way. So you want to make sure you review whatever the generative AI kicks out for you as an output, but it's a good starting place to make this process go a little bit faster. Before AI, it would take 3 hours to tailor a single resume. But now it can take 3 minutes to go through that process. So you do want to have a customized resume for each and cover letter, ideally, for each job you apply to, but that doesn't mean that you spend hours going through the customization process.
Yeah, I basically am echoing Abby on this one. You shouldn't be sending out a generic, vague resume to like every job. Like I got kind of burnt on this years ago, because I paid like a high end resume writer to write me a resume. So you got this I paid like 4 figures for this resume. So you do not want to go in and start tweaking it and everything. But like that's kind of what you have to do to apply to a lot of like professional jobs and stuff. The problem is, especially these days, ATS is the big name of the game. So when you apply for a posted job, chances are it's going to an applicant tracking system, which uses AI to read resumes, and a human doesn't see the resume. And the reason that firms will use that, employers will use that automated system, is because the sheer volume of applications they're getting. So what this thing does is it looks for keywords, key phrases, and other things, and then ranks them all. And then the recruiter, like, right, Abby, that's kind of like the tools that I think you used, right?
Yep.
It'll
Yep.
rank.
Exactly. And when it comes to people applying, I also use systems where it would have people answer some questions after uploading the resume and things like that. And so it would not only rank people based off of the documents that it kind of scanned through, but then it would also rank them based on their responses to those questions. So, if I'm asking for someone who has 1 to 3 years of experience, then I might say you have 0 years of experience. They could click that as an option. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, all the way up to maybe 5 years. And so the people who have 5 years of experience might be ranked higher than someone who has 3 years of experience. So there's, a lot of thought goes into it, hopefully, from a recruiter perspective, to make it as easy as possible to identify and quickly filter through the sheer volume of applications.
And it's always different too. Like different companies, different employers will employ different formulas and different thinking there. It's always going to be unique.
Yep. And one of the things, like one of my good friends works for a small organization that does not have an applicant tracking system. And so they're in the process of hiring for several engineering roles. And so what they do is they take resumes and their job description, and they actually put them into AI and ask AI to analyze the fit based off of the resume to the job posting. And so they're even using tools that are not necessarily like company approved tools to quickly filter through applications to determine this information. And so you do want to spend time, because I know as a recruiter, you can tell when something is generic. You can tell when someone created one document and is submitting it to every single application. When someone has written one cover letter and is just tweaking the name of the organization at the
Change
top.
the name. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
So you can tell. And even if they hit all the boxes and they check all of the things being the best fit, once you get into the documents, if they feel generic and vague, that puts you lower on the list. The people who put in a little bit more effort tend to rise to the top.
Yeah, so it tends to be a losing strategy to have like a one size fits all resume, one size fits all cover letter, change the name, out it goes. That tends to not work very much anymore. That might have been the strategy, I don't know, 10 years ago that would have been okay, but unfortunately it doesn't really work now. So the bottom line is what I'd recommend would be kind of like what Abby says. Go to Chat GPT. You could use any of these platforms, but I'd say start with Chat GPT and paste in the entire text of the job posting. Say this is the job posting. Paste in the entire text of your master resume with all your stuff on it, right? Maybe a 3-page resume. Every little thing you've done there that you could put on a resume, make a version with all of that stuff on there, right? That so you paste that in, and then you say, listen, I would like you to create a custom version of my resume that's tailored to be as close of a fit as possible to this job posting that I'm going to use it to apply to.
Yep.
Right. And then it will rearrange stuff. It might rephrase a couple of things. It might eliminate a couple of things that are like totally irrelevant to this job.
Yep.
And then give you a sort of, here's your custom resume for this position. Now you need to proofread it just to make sure. Don't just blindly send it off. Take a moment to read it. You might want to tweak a word here, or whatever, and then apply to the job that way. And that's what I would recommend is probably the optimal way to apply for posted jobs in this day and age.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm interested to hear Abby's thoughts on like what if you would tweak that for yourself.
Yeah, no. So I have what I call like my master resume, which, is 4 to 6 pages long. It's got everything in it, 20 plus bullet points per job posting job that I've held. And I'll take that, paste it into ChatGPT, Grok, whatever generative AI platform, and I'll take the job posting and I'll say, help me create a tailored resume. Now, one of the other things that I might do is say, like, here's a specific job. Please identify, based off of this job that I've held and the bullet points that I put together for it, what are 5 to 10 tailored bullet points for this specific job posting? And then I can filter through, pick which ones I think are my favorite, which ones I think are the best, highlighting my skills as it relates to the job. So you could do it per job, or you could just do your entire document. You don't want to get lazy and just accept what ChatGPT or Grok kicks out for you. You want to be very intentional about only including the relevant information. Now, this is something that I think has come up in our last couple of streams, Bill, but it's the fact that you are writing your resume for the reader, not for you. So
Yes.
while I might have 10 plus years of experience in this field, that's very impressive, and I have these accolades and awards and all these things that I've done, does the reader care about all of those things as it relates to the job that they are trying to fill? Chances are the answer is no. Chances are they're looking for very specific things from a potential candidate. And if I am going on and on about all these great things that I have achieved and accomplished and overcome that are not related specifically to the job that they're trying to fill, it's just fluff that they don't care about. And
Absolutely.
they're going to move past my resume, even though it's quite impressive. So save those things for the interview when you're, trying to talk about yourself. Don't put it in the document unless it is specific and relevant to the job that you're applying to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely correct. I mean, the resume, the thing is, there's a conflict that people have with resumes. On the one hand, you feel like it's almost like a valedictorian thing where they here's your list of accomplishments. Here's your accolades, like everything you've done, wow, look at that track record of all this stuff. Right. And, you feel like, okay, this is me and I'm proud of all of this. So therefore, naturally, I want everyone to know that I've done all these different things. Right. The problem is that, like Abby says, that it's not about you. Everyone thinks it's all about me. It isn't about me. It's about the recruiter or the hiring manager or whoever is on the receiving end of this. They're looking for someone. They have a very specific need. They're looking for someone that's the closest match to what they're looking for. and they don't really care about everything you've done. They only care about you in as much as you have the things that they are looking for. So time spent telling them that you've got all these different things that weren't what they're asking for, usually not only is it neutral, it actually counts against you. It
Yes.
wastes their time. It dilutes the things you do have that line up with what they're looking for. Uh, so the perfect thing would be for you to send them something that says exactly what they're looking for, no more, no less. That would have been the perfect ideal. We can't always do that because we're not mind readers, but that's what we're shooting for, right?
And
So
that's why I also recommend uploading a cover letter with every job you submit, because your resume is this like snapshot of how you are the best fit for the role that you are applying to. You're hooking the reader, you're hooking the recruiter, the hiring manager, whoever it is, to say, "Oh, I want to know more about this person." Then they open up your cover letter, which goes into a little bit more detail about who you are, what you've achieved, what you're bringing to the table that you haven't yet mentioned on your resume, which then hooks them even more to say, "I want to talk to this person. I want to schedule a phone interview or a phone screen or an actual in-person interview with this person, so we can see if they really are as good of a fit as they say they are, or they're making me think they are."
yes. Um, we have something here from Keish Richard says, yep, there's been a downward spiral dwelling. So very negative stuff. Keish, you're awesome. And you might not believe this, but out there right now is an employer that's looking for you. They're looking for exactly what you have. The problem is that you're not connected to that employer. They're looking over. You can't see my hands. I got to make this so you can see my hands. They're looking over here. You're over here. There's no connection. That's the problem. Okay. And there's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do in the posted job market. There's a lot you can do in the hidden job market. You need to be looking for sure in both those places.
Yeah.
And also keeping in mind the hidden job market's like 5 times the size of the posted job market. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so
What
for
I
a start, tune into both those things if you aren't already.
Yep. And I think Keish was commenting kind of on our discussion about not looking backwards. When you're applying to jobs and you keep getting
Okay.
those rejection after rejection after rejection, it's so easy to get into that downward spiral. And while we
Yes.
think we want responses so that we can just get some communication and move on, that like negative feeling of rejection that we're not good enough, we're not what they're looking for, really has this negative impact on our mental health and creates this downward spiral that's hard to overcome and get out of.
If you're a guy, you discover chocolate at that point. If you're a lady, you discover cheesecake. I think that's how it goes.
I'm not much of a cheesecake fan, but I
Really,
will
the
devour
cheesecake
some
is a thing
chocolate.
with women. I've noticed that. I don't know. Anyway, maybe it's just the women near me. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Uh, Joe Pan says, "Let's go." And speaking the truth.
Again, I think that was in response to our conversation about looking forward, not looking backwards.
Ah,
Yeah.
well, it's true. Yeah, it's true. I mean,
Mhm.
you've got the background in psychology there, Abby. I mean, that's the thing. Like psychology and job search, I think, go hand in hand. I think there's a lot of people that could use a lot more insight on the psychology of this stuff as you go through it. Like
Yeah.
almost every angle is about psychology. So far today, we've talked about rejection. We've also talked about reaching out to people and
Mhm.
like if you've never done this before, your perceptions or you feel like you're bothering them, and but their perception of it is like completely different.
Yeah.
So I mean there's a lot of interesting psychological elements to this whole area.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, even the psychology of like putting in effort to your applications, like, ugh, well, I'm not going to get hired. I have to submit 100 applications. I'm just going to create one resume and submit all of them. Like that, the psychology of that is interesting as well. So every aspect of this has to do with how we are, thinking and behaving, how the employer or the recruiter is thinking and behaving, and trying to make some connection with that.
Yeah. And everyone wants to know what the perspective of the other person is. So
Mhm.
so I think a lot of job seekers, you would love to know like what's going through the recruiter's mind and how they see like if you submitted a resume or something and what's going through their mind as they're reading your resume. What's
Mhm.
their reaction to everything? What do they notice first? How much do they read? The first thing they read, what's their first impression,
Mhm.
and so on. What like we would love that. The hiring manager, what did they think? How does it differ from the recruiter's perspective? when they
No.
read your resume, when they first meet you in the job interview? What I mean, is there a rule? There's like a rule. I heard there's a rule. You know, the first minute or 2 minutes or 7 seconds, they know if they're hiring you or not.
Mhm.
You know, like explain that. Like, where does that come from? What is that based on?
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I think there's
Well,
a lot of people that would want to know. I know I'm going on, but I want to say I think there's a lot of people that could really use answers for how this stuff works. And I want to just encourage you. The more you can talk about that, I think a lot of people are interested.
absolutely. Well, and I think the problem is that every individual is different. So you might have one recruiter who is psychologically approaching it from one way, and then another recruiter who works with that other recruiter who's approaching it from a completely different perspective. I know that probably the best, at least simplification of the process initially from a like application review perspective, is that it's very transactional. It's not even about the people involved, it's just the data that the recruiter is able to go through on their screen initially. So that's why creating a personal connection with that person and getting some emotion involved early is always going to make your chances better than, just passively applying and waiting to hear from someone. If I am a recruiter and I have 5 applications from people who I don't know, I just get, their submitted resume, cover letters, their answers to supplemental questions. And then I have one person who I went to a career fair and they introduced themselves and then they followed up with an email and I see their name in the pile. I'm going to say, I want to spend a little bit more time on that person's application and review to see if they're actually a good fit for this or not, versus the 5 who are a blank face at this point, just documents. So if you can get
Yeah.
some emotion involved, then your chances are probably higher.
It's like, I've never actually seen anyone do, maybe this exists or something. I've just never seen it, but I never seen anyone actually do like the recruiter's perspective on when they receive applications. So here's what the ATS system looks like. Here's how it ranks. This is what I see as a recruiter.
Mhm.
I see this. Okay, I'm going to check out this one, and it's based on this that I saw, like this phrase or the ranking, or it shows me a snapshot of the resume or whatever. I've never seen a video. I think a lot of people would be interested in doing that. I don't know if you have the ability to do that with actual ATS software, and
Yeah,
you
I
know.
mean, currently no, because I'm not actively working as a recruiter. I think organizations might be a little hesitant about that because they don't want anyone's, personal information getting shared. So you have to probably be pretty careful about that. But it would
Well,
be
you could
really
just
interesting.
load some sample information into it and make a mock-up and say this is what they see and this is what it looks like, or
Yeah,
something. I think a lot of people could benefit from that, just
I
personally,
agree. I
you know,
agree.
you
Yeah.
know. And the interview stuff, I think the understanding the mentality of a recruiter, and you make a good point when you say there's lots of different types of people, but I think that there's some principles that are universal, and then
Agreed.
there's some principles that might apply. It'll apply for some people, but not others.
Yeah.
But at least if you have like a lot of the common stuff laid out, I think a lot of people would get a benefit from that because they've never been in that position where they're on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
You
I agree. I agree.
Let's see. Let's do that. Okay, so we have Rourke talking to someone else. We've got Rourke. AI lets me do that in an hour or so per job.
Tailor documents.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it took me 4 to 5 hours to create the resume template.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. It's a lot more.
Put a lot of effort into that master document.
Yeah,
Then you never have to update it again. You have to just add to it slowly as you get more experience, education, certifications, whatever it might be. But it will take a chunk of time to create that initial document. And then it becomes infinitely easier when you've got that finalized version.
yeah, and I mean, I'm not some like power user of AI, but I mean, I use it a lot. I know enough that like it has memory and stuff, and I mean, you can tweak your process over time so it knows your preferences. If it's customizing your resume, it'll make decisions about what it thinks is a good fit, but you can also tailor that process and give it guidelines of what and how to do, how to do it. So, I mean, that's the more you do, the more efficient you get and the more effective you get at doing that. Okay, and AI lets me pepper the resume with the best keywords to pass any ATS that my resume might be scanned by. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're using a computer to maneuver another computer.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you, Jopan, for your kind words there. You're welcome, and thanks for being here.
It's interesting world. Thanks for trying to prompt people to add some questions and comments to the chat. We love all the things that come through because it's helps us help you.
Yeah, it's we're here primarily to answer your questions. So whatever you're wondering, whatever you're struggling with, let us know, and we'll do our best to help you out. Guy Incognito says, "What does congratulations mean?" I got that in a response after an interview. Unfortunately, we regret to inform you is all I've ever seen. I'm scared and confused. Don't be scared and confused, Guy Incognito. You're awesome. It's all good. Um, when they say congratulations in an email, I presume that means you get the job.
Yeah,
Is
that's an odd
fantastic.
thing to put in there. Maybe it was a typo. Maybe it was, like, congrats on a great interview. You don't get the job until you actually get the job. So
Yeah,
always keep that in mind. You do want to keep an eye out for those, like, signs that could indicate that things went well, as well as the signs that indicate it didn't go as well. Congratulations. If I see that in an interview, makes me feel like things went well in that interview. It just must have gone better for someone else.
yeah. If you're looking for a blanket response, if it was me, I would send an email in response and say, "Well, thank you very much," and then ask about the next step,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yep.
and go from there. Um, Interesting World says, "Is this truth, guys? I heard this said by someone the other day." Well, if someone says it, then it must be true. When you get in the room with the interviewer and you handed the resume to her or him, most of the time they don't care about the resume. If you're in the interview, they would, yeah, they're not going to care, presumably, unless they requested it from you or for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
They
And
would
their
care about
comment
talking to you.
continues next. Like, they
Mm,
just want to see if they like you or not for the job position, and the resume, most of the time they do not even look at it, and they just want to either like you or not. So in most cases, let's just say best case scenario, as a recruiter, this is what I would hope would happen. I, as a recruiter, review an application, decide that this person is a good fit. I forward the application materials to the hiring manager so they can confirm that this is someone that they want to talk to. So ideally, the hiring manager and the interviewers have already looked at your resume. I also do recommend that if you're at an in-person interview, that you bring a padfolio to take notes that also has a couple copies of your resume that you can offer at the beginning, just in case someone was last minute pulled into the interview and they haven't had a chance to look at your documents. In most cases, I would hope that everyone who's in the room has already looked at your resume and knows who you are and what you bring to the table, because they should be expecting to hear some things from you based on the questions they're going to ask you. And that is also based on what they know about you from your application. So in 80% of the situations, there's probably someone who has already looked at your resume and does not need that extra copy. But there's that 20% of, the random person who was pulled in from the hallway last minute, who has no idea who you are and why you're in the room and how you're a good fit for this role. So getting a copy of your resume at the beginning of an interview could be helpful for them. It just demonstrates that you're prepared and eager.
I think Abby's being kind. You're absolutely true. But then everybody's favorite situation. There's the time when the person that invited you for the interview, you get down there and they can't remember who the hell you are. They don't know the first thing about you, right? Because what usually happens
Mm-hmm.
is that they have a bunch of job interviews. They're all back to back, so they're interviewing like six people in a row, and then you're like six of six, and they don't have any time between these interviews. So like, okay, now the next person is here, and they haven't had a chance to reread your resume or anything. The last time they read your resume was when they invited you down to the interview like weeks ago. So they have no idea what's on it. So if you bring an extra copy of your resume, just in case they don't have it and they're ill prepared, It's like the idiot's guide to how to give a job interview. You look at the person's resume and you start asking them questions off, oh, I see you did this. Well, what's with that? And that's how anybody can do a job interview. You know what I mean?
Which is why I framed mine as best case scenario.
Yes.
All these things have happened ahead of time, but there's no, like, if you hand them a resume or you offer them the resume and they say, well, we're not going to give this person this job, red flag, you don't want to work there anyway. They are poop heads who need to be left in the past. Move on.
And that is a technical term in the recruiting industry. Yes. No, it's listen. The way this works is you get the interview on the strength of your application, which means your resume, right? Once you go to the interview, it's not about what's on your resume. It's about who you are as a person. That's the entire point,
yes.
Right? Interviews are not fun and they're not convenient for anybody. The only reason they do this is because they want to see you in person. They want to know who they're going to be working with. Mm-hmm. That's the idea. So the interview is not about your resume. It's all about who you are. Like, what's your personality? How well can you communicate? How charismatic are you? Is it easy to talk to you? Or, do you put people on edge and make people uncomfortable?
Yes.
That's really what interviews are about, right?
And while there might be some technical aspect of it to confirm that you know how to do what you say you know how to do, the majority of the questions you will be faced with during an interview are behavior based, because past behavior indicates future behavior. So they want to know, are you good with people? Are you going to fit into the culture of this organization? They know that you are going to be joining a team. How are you going to fit in with that team? Because that team's performance then impacts everyone's happiness in the workplace. So there's a lot, it's the psychology of it all. If it was all about purely what qualifications you have, what skills do you have, and can you do the job or not, getting a job would be much easier. But it's not about that. It's about all these other things that are very subjective based on the interviewer's perception of you during the interview on if you'll fit into all these different puzzle pieces of the organization, the team, and the role.
Yeah, and the hiring manager's perspective is they hire the person they like the most. Because the idea is that the people you're bringing in for the interview, on paper, they're all perfectly qualified. Yep. You're not like choosing between, one person and several people that are kind of duds. You're choosing between several people. Any one of them would be fine. Yep. Like, that's usually the situation they've set up with interviews. So you've got to do like a tiebreaker between people, and the tiebreaker usually is, the soft skills, like how well you essentially like somebody, how much the hiring manager likes them. I hate to say it, but that's what it comes down to.
Yes. Well, and I, one of the most recent jobs that I had been hired for, had a reference check that was basically like a survey that was sent to references and then generated a score on, out of 10 of the references, like aggregated responses. Mm-hmm. And I was told by the hiring manager that the only reason they chose to hire me versus the other person who was the finalist was a single point difference in those reference results. Because we were so close, they liked both of us so much that either of us could have worked well. So they kind of needed this like external thing to push one of us over the edge. So like, I had a single point better score on this than the other person, and that's why they chose to go with me. And
that's common though. That's common because it's you see people agonizing over these decisions because all the candidates, or at least several, are like really good. It's hard to pick between them. And incidentally, people in IT fields, technical fields, you guys have an advantage. You might not realize, because a lot of people in those areas, they're not tuned into this whole like charisma thing that you need to get selected. And so you get a lot of people in job interviews, a lot of candidates, asking questions and saying things that are very blunt, that create a lot of awkwardness. Like, for example, that question, usually the last thing they ask in an interview, where they say, do you have any questions for us? Right. And then you get like candidates like really putting the screws to them and like asking them all kinds of like direct awkward
Yeah.
things that they really can't answer because it's like they're representing the organization. They can't
Yeah.
tell you all the bad things about it and stuff. So if you're tuned into the whole charisma thing, like you know that they hire the person they like the best, basically, you have a bit of an edge because a lot of your competitors don't realize that, you know.
Yes.
So that can be your secret weapon if you get to the interview stage.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Rourke, AI hallucinations are a real thing. AI loves to list me as an expert in software that the company wants, but I do not use. So I use the recommendations by the AI and then make the edits myself.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah.
To ensure I do not accidentally copy paste a AI hallucination. Yes,
I would
that's
say
why
a
you
lot of people don't do this. A lot of people will like say, "Oh, this looks good. Like I'm just going to paste it in there," and then they can get caught by the recruiter or the hiring manager asking them specific questions. Oh, so I see that you have a lot of experience with this specific software. Tell me how you might use it to do X, Y, and Z. And you're like, never done that before. So
yeah.
make sure that you are reading through because what AI generates for you should be a very first rough draft, not the final product.
Yes.
So it's just a starting place. You should then use your human intelligence to modify it to actually fit your expertise and background.
Yeah, always proofread. Always proofread. Like that's a critical step, you know, and you might want to tweak things just to if it sounds too robotic even, you know, or mechanical, you might want to just add something in so it sounds like it comes from a human.
Yep.
Rourke, how do you recommend attaching a cover letter when the online systems like LinkedIn or Indeed sometimes do not have a section for a cover letter?
Love this question. I just had this discussion with someone last week. So if there's only one spot to upload, you want to check the size of the document that it will accept. But I would create an application package that has your resume first, then your cover letter, and then like any other supplemental materials that you think that they might find helpful in evaluating your application. So just combine it into a single document. My recommendation with that too is to ensure all of your documents look the same. So for example, on my resume, I have a very specific header that appears on every page of that document, which max should be 2 pages. I have the same header that also appears on my cover letter. And then if I include anything else, like, if they require a list of people who would be recommendations or references, I would have that same header. So you want to make sure it looks like a very professional package put together that represents you. If they don't have a spot for a cover letter, have it be the second page or the third page of your application package. Whatever they're looking for, though, first, if they want you to upload a resume, have that be the first document that they see when they open up that PDF.
Create a watermark of your face, just going like that, in the back on every page.
Oh,
that's right. Personal branding, right? That's what it's for. Amy says, I took your advice and honed in on the characteristics of the position I wanted. I chose the keywords from the job description and used them during my interview. I got hired. Thank you. That's awesome. That's great news. Amy, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
And you obviously did everything right there. So way to go. Keish says, I'm out of the negative space now, and thank you for encouraging me, Bill and Abby. Thanks for speaking life over me and people like me. Okay, well, you're absolutely welcome, Keish, and I'm glad that it made a small difference there. That's really good. Yeah. You deserve to feel better about this. I mean, it's a stressful time, but, a lot of rejection has a profound impact on people. You know what I mean? We think that we're no good. We think that, we'll never get a job. Like those are both false. You know what I mean? This is highly temporary and you're really valuable and you've got a lot of skills,
Yeah.
I mean, this, but it's easy to get
it happens
into
quickly.
thinking.
Yeah. Rejection buildup, like I said, there's that ratio 5 to 1. 5 positive things have to outweigh the impact of the 1 negative thing. And if you just get the negative rejection, negative experience, ghosting, all that just builds up quickly over time and puts you into this negative headspace.
Yeah. If you're getting all those rejections, if you have to multiply it by 5, that means you need what, like 255,000 good things to happen to you to make you feel normal again. I mean, it's a bit scary when you think about it. Yeah. Valentina says, can we agree, though, that job description are so extensive that someone can feel intimidated by it? They look for dream people, and I feel like how can I actually have all those requirements?
Mm-hmm. And they certainly could be looking for a unicorn, someone who meets all these requirements, and there's no one who exists who does that. You can kind of tell if an organization is looking for a unicorn based off of how long their job search has been. Or when I say their job search, their position has been open and how many interviews they've done and things like that. Again, I was just talking to a client this morning about like when you should apply versus when you shouldn't apply to a job. And I would say if the job has been open for about a month or less, then you're probably still good to apply for that job. If the job has been open for more than that time frame, then it could be an indication that the organization is looking for a unicorn and they're never going to find it. And so you're going to put in all this effort. You might even interview and get to the final round, and they decide that you're still not the unicorn they're looking for and move you into the reject pile. So when it comes to kind of addressing this in the job search process, you want to make sure that you have all of the minimum qualifications, which should be a much smaller list than the preferred qualifications. Ideally, you have at least half to 80%, if not more, preferred qualifications. If you have less than half of the preferred qualifications, they probably are not going to pick you over other people who do. So use that kind of as a metric to help you gauge if it's worth it to apply to jobs or not. You must have all the minimum qualifications. That's usually non-negotiable from HR. There will be some, language in there that could indicate that they'd be willing to be flexible in like education, for example. Maybe minimum qualification is that you have a bachelor's degree or an equivalent 3 years of experience. So look for that equivalency language in the minimum qualifications. Again, usually that is something that's non-negotiable. You must meet those in order to be considered for the role. Then you got the preferred qualifications, and that's where it can get really extensive. Have at least half of those preferred qualifications, or be able to justify how you have at least half of those through transferable skills. Having all of them is going to be slim, and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion on this, and I don't know if this is borne out in reality or if it is, how often, but it's that, first of all, the reason that they put such lofty expectations on a lot of job descriptions is also because of the volume of applicants they're getting. So they feel they can afford to be really, really picky, right? It doesn't mean they always get, like Abby said, they always get that perfect person in there necessarily. But when you get like 800 people applying, they get very emboldened to say, well, we want this and we want this, and like it might be realistic, especially for the compensation that they're offering, and they're going to shoot for the moon and try and get that perfect person. The reality maybe, and you can easily find this out very quickly in 2 minutes with like researching salaries and things, salary ranges, that like that's just not going to happen for the pay grade that you're paying out.
Yes.
You want someone to be at the PhD level with 30 years experience. You're paying $20 an hour. It's like, no, you're not going to get that, right? So does it mean that you shouldn't apply if you don't meet a lot of the things or all of them? No, I would say apply anyway, especially if you're automating the process. So it's not like you're slaving away on a thing that takes 3 hours to do. Mm-hmm. I would apply anyway. If it's something you want to do and it's realistic, I would apply. Do the thing where, like we talked about, you get AI to try and write a version of your resume that's the closest possible fit, but then apply, but still send it on. You know what I mean? Don't be intimidated and convinced not to even apply if it's something that you feel you should be able to do, And
this goes back to our conversation about like the recruiter's perspective when they're looking at applications. So it's very transactional from their point of view initially. They're like looking, does this person meet this? Does this person have this? Yes, no, yes, no. This person gets interviewed. This person does not. They're not caring about you as a human. They're not caring about you as a potential employee. They're just looking at like the data that they can have in front of them. Now, the way to get around that is to inject some emotion into the situation. So if there's a way to contact the recruiter, if there's a way to contact someone who can contact the recruiter within the organization to then get them to focus a little bit more on your application, that is always going to be better for you. So how can you get the recruiter or whoever's reviewing applications to see you as a person rather than just as a document that you submitted initially? And that's the big challenge. And that's why networking can be so valuable.
Yeah, and I'll say one other thing about this, and that is that like to come back to the whole like should I apply if I don't meet all the requirements? It's like what I've seen and what I've done personally for like some job postings is that you post like requirements and you say we want that you have this, right? But what that really translates to is that they want this area not to be an issue, right? So they're assuming that, okay, well, if you have this degree or this education, then that shouldn't be an issue. Now, if you don't have the education that they ask for, but you have something that you could sort of argue, like, okay, so, you're looking for, I don't know, 3 years, like a 3 year science degree or something. And the only reason they're saying we want you to have that is because you might have to write a technical report occasionally, and they want to make sure that that's not beyond you. You know what I mean? So you show up and you send an application and you say, like, okay, well, I don't have that, but I do have this. I have experience writing reports, or I've done this work. You know,
Mhm.
it's not what they asked for. It's not that they said that that was the minimum, but de facto you do meet the minimum requirements because you can write reports, and that was their area of concern, right? So you know what I'm saying? Like you can make a case for yourself. So even if you don't meet the minimum stuff, but you still feel the job is reasonable, I would say apply for it and just make your best case.
Yep. And so one of the organizations that I've worked for recently, we instituted a policy of including this language, which I just put in the chat, Bill. It's probably easier to do the Twitch comment because it's the full thing. But it's talking about that research shows that women in other underrepresented and historically marginalized groups tend to apply only when they check every box in the posting. If you're reading this and hesitating to click apply for that reason, we encourage you to go for it. A true passion and excitement for making an impact is just as important as work experience. So I think organizations are also starting to recognize that unicorns don't exist. Their chances of finding someone who checks every single box for a job posting is going to be slim to none. So if you find yourself checking, at least 50% of the preferred qualifications, why not? What's the worst that can happen?
You're saying they're including this language on the job,
Yes.
the job posting.
Yep. And I've noticed that not just that organization that I've worked for, but many other organizations are starting to include language similar to this so that people feel more confident to apply rather than,
Well, this is where self
well, I
confidence comes into play. I mean, I don't care who you are. And, you know what I'm saying? I don't think it's limited to gender or ethnicity or anything else. I think it just, you need to, people develop a certain amount of self confidence, generally speaking, with experience. It depends where they start, but it tends to increase over time.
Yeah.
So if you're younger and this is something you're worried about, you feel like, I guess it's a form of imposter syndrome. Do I really have the right to apply, or will they laugh me out of the room if, when they get my application? You know, apply anyway. You know what I mean?
Anyway.
Like you're an awesome person. You're valuable, and what a lot of the reason why people succeed or fail in jobs is more to do with the interpersonal relationships and like how you get along with people and how you communicate. And maybe they're a certain type of person and you happen to be a very similar type of person and you just click. You understand each other, you communicate the same way. A lot of that stuff ends up being more of a determinant anyway, rather than just simply qualifications. So apply anyway, and you never really know what's going on the other end, but at least this
Absolutely.
way you have a chance.
Absolutely. Okay, so going back up into the chat, so we've got number 912 Racing says, I
Okay,
have a
this is where
career
we are.
goal. Yep. But I feel stuck because I'm specialized and the pay is good. To get the experience I need, it looks like I have to take a pay cut. Any advice here?
I would say don't take a pay cut, because what you're doing is you're saying like it's uncertainty. You're saying like, okay, there's a chance that this may happen, or there's a chance that that may happen.
Mhm.
Because you don't know, I would say don't take a tangible, retreat now.
Yeah.
But if you can tack something on, like in terms of skills or experience, now that's a reasonable thing to pay off in the future. Like, for example, maybe you learn networking, or maybe you go back to school on the side and you learn business, or you learn AI, or you learn some other skill or thing like that. You learn public speaking, you learn to improve your conversational ability or your personal charisma. So you're investing in yourself, you're planning for the future, trying to make yourself more like, what's the word, Abby? Like more,
Marketable, maybe?
yeah, more marketable. There you go. But it's not directly costing you anything now. You know what I'm saying? I would rather stay where you are, don't take any kind of pay cut, but do things that are clearly beneficial in a general sense, that will make you more valuable, or recognized as being more valuable,
Yeah.
and do it
Well,
that way.
I wonder if, maybe this, you're specialized, you currently have a job in this area. In your organization, is there a way for you to have a conversation with your direct supervisor to come up with some sort of agreement to let you start to dabble in this other area to build the experience you need while still simultaneously continuing your current job? So if you are specialized, but you've got a handle on your workload, you're feeling like you could take some extra projects on, is there a way to collaborate with someone internally in your organization, build relationships across departments, with clients or customers, however that might look, to get the experience you need to then continue to move in this career goal that you're shooting for, that doesn't require you to take a step down in pay? There's ways to get creative about it. Maybe it's even volunteering your time with an organization you feel strongly about to do the stuff to get the experience you need to then put on your resume, because you can include volunteer and unpaid experience in that capacity. But there's more options than just quitting and demoting from a pay perspective, than that option.
Yeah, and I want to say one more thing here. Like, to Abby's point, the volunteering thing, it's like, for example, let's pretend that where you work, you put in your time, you get paid, and you're fine doing that. But every once in a while, maybe the boss kind of has some volunteer kind of optional duties and says, listen, I got to send someone to this trade show or to this event that represents our department or our company. I got to send someone to this conference or whatever. You don't get paid extra for it, but it's a bit of travel and whatever. And maybe traditionally you've said, no, that's not part of my core competency. I'm not a salesperson. I just do accounting or whatever, but maybe it's an opportunity. You say, like, okay, listen, you know what? I'll go. If you're okay sending me, I'd like to go.
Mm-hmm.
And you've never done that kind of thing before. Now you're representing the company. Now you're meeting people from other companies in your industry. You're having to engage with people, things that you don't normally do, right? And so, number one, you're a little bit more visible where you work, so that can help. You probably won't be the first one out the door if they do lay people off, for example. But secondly, you're making connections, you're developing those skills, and that can open doors in many ways.
Yeah.
So, it'd be something to that kind of investment in yourself, like take on volunteer stuff. And maybe your boss is grateful that now you're enthusiastically volunteering for these, so he doesn't have to, like, he or she doesn't have to assign people to it and stuff like that.
Yep, absolutely.
Alpine's
Pat.
Pal. Yeah. You want to take this one?
I found it hard to get a job as receptionist / front desk. I've also had to do the performance test on Indeed. Am I hitting a wall, or is there a way to get noticed? Honestly, the best thing to do is probably find a decision maker in the organization that you're trying to apply for that front desk role for, and build that relationship and rapport with them. Many times the receptionist and front desk position is, you're the face of the organization. And again, if you can somehow inject some emotion and connection and relationship into the application and hiring process, your chances go up significantly. So if I know that I'm, let's just say it's a small local business near my home, I know they're hiring for it. If I'm going to apply for a receptionist front desk position, I'm probably going to show up in person and, look my best, have a prepared and professional resume, try to have some conversations with someone, make some of those connections versus just blindly applying through platforms like Indeed or even, on the company's website. So networking somehow
Yeah.
inject that emotion into the situation for those decision makers.
Not to like reduce this down to almost an insulting level or anything, but a lot of people can answer phones. A lot of people can do those tasks. What separates the good people from the bad people is not like the experience they've had. It's just what they're like as a person. And so that's why networking becomes very important for these kinds of roles. So I would agree with Abby on that one. We have to get rolling. Like, it's kind of at our cutoff here. If I don't know if we can just try and wrap these up in a couple of minutes. Let's see what we got here. Thank you, Valentina. That's very nice of you. And I'm glad that you liked what you heard. Alpine's pal says, is it more efficient to get experience from workshops or get a certificate from a training program to get a higher paying job?
I don't have an answer for that. I think it
Yeah.
really depends on the organization, what they're looking for. I think that maybe the stereotype would be having a certification where you can get like letters after your name is more impactful, but it not necessarily.
Yeah, do the LinkedIn thing. Go and search for the specific workshop and the specific certificate to see if people have that on their profiles. Like they're saying that I did this or I have that, and then see where they are and see if it's helped them. You know what I mean? That's the only thing you can really do.
Exactly.
Where are we here? Okay, you did that. Exactly. Yeah, minimum wage. They're offering minimum wage, but they're seeking a unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
That's lovely and realistic.
Yep.
Does pineapple belong on a pizza? I don't know. It depends what country you're in.
Yeah.
Very strict laws about that in some places.
Personally, I believe it does.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't mind a good old Hawaiian style pizza.
Okay. Well, in some of the more militant places around the globe, you might get an argument.
I would be unallowed to continue living there.
Let's see. Oh, so this was your thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think the very last comment is from Fierce Like Frida. Second to last comment that came through. How do you become a desired candidate when you're pivoting your career? In my case, legal operations to customer success roles. I'm really struggling with employers recognizing my transferable skills. Transferable skills is for sure the way to highlight your ability to do a job well when you're switching industries. And it may have to do with just how you're presenting those transferable skills. If you haven't already looked into using AI, I would give that a shot to see what recommendations ChatGPT or Grok might have. Take two different job descriptions. Like, this is what I used to do. This was my job description that I applied to for my current job. And here's a job description that I'm looking to apply to. What transferable skills do you think are the most critical for success in these, in this new role? Based on my resume, how might you suggest I create a tailored resume for this new industry? And just see what it starts to create for you. You want to write your resume for the reader, so they don't care about all of the amazing things you did in legal operations if it doesn't relate to customer success. So you really want to frame it in a customer success perspective, which can be hard if you haven't done that before. So use AI as your first step. And then the next step might be to have someone, who is in that industry, look at your resume before you submit something. Start to build that connection, and then maybe even work with someone like me, who's a career coach, who can help you identify what those transferable skills are, why they might care about these versus others, and how to present those in the more effective way on your documents.
Absolutely. And Joe Pan says, can hypnosis techniques work for job? This is the really important question of the day. Absolutely. Unless only if it involves taking off your clothes, of course. But I mean, any other use of it is just pseudoscience.
Who knows?
That's what I have to say. It could be a psychological angle that we could
reduce anxiety or something like that. But I've never tried hypnosis, so I can't tell you.
That's true. Okay, well, we've reached the end of the chat, and we're all out of time. So, thank you to everybody who participated today. Hopefully, you got something out of this. We are scheduled to do this again, I believe, in 2 weeks from today.
Yes.
Yeah.
So not next week, but the week after.
Yeah. So come back same time. And if you are watching this on my channel or my two channels that this is going out to, check out Abby's channel. I believe there's a link in the description box if you're watching it on my channels.
Same
So
thing
check
goes
out her
for
videos.
if you're watching from mine, I've got the streaming on my Twitch channel as well as on my YouTube channel. Bill has a lot of great resources. Whenever it comes to your job search and preparing for interviews, it's, you're going to get a wide variety of advice. I feel like Bill and I are aligned on a lot of our advice. We also have differing opinions on things. So take all the advice in and then pick the thing that resonates most with you. He's also got some really good courses that can help you from a professional standpoint moving forward. So check out Bill's channel.
Yeah, and my courses are in the description box. Like I have a Get Hired course that I think would be of most interest to people here. If you want to do that with me, I'm not a career coach. I do not work with people one-on-one for job preparation, stuff like that. But Abby is a career coach who works with job seekers. If you need someone in your court on your side, someone who's got your back, it's going to help you get your resume in shape so you can get interviews, and then get your interview technique in shape so you can get offers.
Yeah.
And you're looking for someone to work with you, check out Abby's channel. You have links to all your consulting and coaching services there, right?
Yep. And so I help people put together their application packages. But the bread and butter is the interview strategy sessions that I offer for people. They usually feel like they just need one to really start to accelerate their success in interviews. So if that's something that you think could help you moving forward with your job search, let me know.
Yeah, and on my channel, I regularly advocate for sort of two-step or two-phase kind of process if you are trying to prepare yourself to do job interviews. The first phase is when you work kind of by yourself, learn the answers for common questions,
Yes.
just figure out what your answers are going to be, memorize them, that kind of thing. But the second phase is working with somebody else. And that could be a career coach, that could be an HR company, that could be a friend or family member, but you're going to be doing mock interviews where you simulate a job interview where you sit down and then you have somebody staring at you, asking you questions. And it's quite a different experience than when you're practicing by yourself alone in front of a mirror or something. You're not super nervous, you can think clearly and stuff. It's a whole different thing when you got someone staring at you and you're out of your comfort zone. So, as I understand, Abby, this is kind of one of the things you help people with. You do these mock interviews,
Yes. Yep.
and give professional feedback on, what advice you have for people to do better and stuff like that.
Yep. So people will give me a job application or a job posting that they've applied to, and then I will create tailored questions specifically about that job and their resume. And I'll act as an interviewer, and we'll record our Zoom session, and I'll then give them feedback on their nonverbal body language, their responses to questions. I'm not an expert necessarily, so I listen for clarity and conciseness. Does your story make sense? And so it's really helpful for people. And while it might be uncomfortable to go back and watch that recording, and it might even be uncomfortable in the mock interview setting, it simulates what it's like to be in a real interview. And many people find the feedback valuable so that they can have tangible things to be focused on and work to improve for their real interview that matters.
And I imagine people can go away and work on some of the things that you kind of pointed out and advise them to do, and then come back and then do another one and get even more sort of feedback and objective opinion on how you're doing and stuff like that. What kind of first impression you're making and all this kind of thing. Very useful stuff.
Yep. And so we could even do, like 3 rounds of mock interviews, for example. We could do a phone screen mock interview, which is, a very different type of interview than a standard interview. We could do a, standard interview with like first round, and then even like a final round interview. If you know who you're meeting with a HR person or recruiter. That's very different than if you're meeting with the hiring manager or like the CEO of the organization. The information they're wanting to hear from you is different. And the way you answer in any of those interviews will be slightly different.
Yeah, those CEOs are some real rat bastards too. You really want to watch them. Keep your hand on your wallet at all times. Okay, well, thanks everyone. You guys are awesome. We will be back in a couple of weeks. I will be live again on Wednesday. Other than that, best of luck in your job search. Never get discouraged. It's going to be temporary, and you're going to come out just fine.
You've got this.
And we'll see you soon. So take care.
Bye, everyone.